The following presentation is a Barrett Sports Media production. Recognizing the unsung heroes of sports media.
I'm stuck in this pit, working for less than slave wages, working on my day off.
This is the Producers Podcast with Brady Farkas.
I'm the executive producer.
Oh, you're the executive producer.
And it starts now.
Today we catch up with Nuno Teixeira of ESPN. He's the producer of Greeny, one of the producers on Greeny on ESPN Radio. We find out the differences between Greeny's radio program and Get Up, the television show, and how the two differentiate from each other. We talk about if he can ever beat Hembo to the stats of the day, and he also did a spell producing for the Jerry Springer show. There's got to be a story there.
Before I got into this media thing as an older person, I worked for a credit card company for almost 8 years and call centers and things of that nature. Then I went and I was selling cars for 3 years. I went back to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and they hooked me up with an internship at NBC down in Stamford, Connecticut. A part of my internship was I worked on the Jerry Springer show as well as Steve Wilkos. On Sundays, I was part of the audience group, so I was hanging out at the Stamford Mall, getting people to sign up for tickets. People loved coming to the Jerry Springer show. And then on Wednesdays, I was hanging out with the assistant editors for Jerry Springer, Wilkos, and actually Maury Povich. We'd be sitting in a little ingest room, and I was hanging out with them. And it was funny because, one of the assistant editors, his job was to go through the audience. He would have to pixelate anything in the Jerry Springer show. Well, whether it was a T-shirt, someone giving the middle finger, someone ripped someone's clothes off, just sitting there and pixelated. It was truly fascinating to see how producers dealt with people that actually wanted to be on that show. It was kind of like, hey, okay, we brought you here. Part of the things for their PAs or interns were if they were handling the guests, make sure when they went out, they didn't get too, they didn't party too much. Make sure they showed up on time. It was very much, this is what you're going to wear. I don't care that you bought a new outfit. So it was very interesting to say the least.
What's the difference between TV production and radio production?
It's funny because as someone who does, we are simulcast. But at the end of the day, any show that we are doing, it's a radio show. Yes, you want the TV. You're concerned about how it looks. You're concerned about camera angles. You're concerned about, topic bars and making sure you have the right fonts. Whereas for radio, it's what is the content? That's the biggest focus for us. And it's something I've had to learn. It's kind of, that delicate balance where it's, where radio, I don't care what it looks like. No, I need to make sure that TV looks, it looks good and they're following along. So I think it's just for anyone who does radio and then does the TV thing, it's kind of, radio, you can expand more versus the TV aspect. So it's just those little quirks. But I've learned, and we get into this, I've learned a lot from being, working with Greeny and being around and having conversations with the Get Up producers and things of that nature. It's helped me do radio better. I've learned those little tricks and kind of, what are they doing on TV that I can bring onto radio? And it's, again, I've been able to develop as a producer because of that.
Greeny Show. How do you make sure that you differentiate the radio product from the TV product we just watched for several hours prior to?
The good thing is we can go more in depth, right? So my biggest thing that I like to do is, I know he's being with the producers, he's been given other information and topics and things of that nature. For me, it becomes, how can we take a topic that even has been done on TV, but make it a radio specific topic, whether, it's asking different questions, it's something that spawned during football season. We have a segment called Nuno's Notes every Monday. And it's kind of just my thoughts based upon games, right? So everyone's talking about the same games, but it's, hey, here's what I was thinking on there. And it's kind of, let's give it a different perspective. We can go more in depth, right? I say that one of the best segments that we have every week is our one place to begin, one place to start for every segment that we do at 10 o'clock. especially during the football season. The analysts that were on Get Up are there, right? So on a Monday, it could be Rex Ryan and Ryan Clark. On a Tuesday, Dominique Foxworth and Jeff Saturday. They're coming off of Get Up, but like we get to go more in depth on conversations, right? Because we can play with the clock a little bit, like, oh, we're supposed to get out here. Let's just push it a little. Like we can get more into the nuts and bolts of a conversation. And then, of course, we can also focus on our bigger affiliates, right? We make sure we focus on New York. We focus on Chicago, just of that nature. So it allows us to get in depth more on just conversations.
You talk about getting into the business late. I got to be honest. Selling cars seems more lucrative financially than production of anything. How exactly did you get into the business or why did you want to get into the business in the first place?
So I always wanted to do media, right? I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I grew up listening to Mike and the Mad Dog. So I always wanted to do this, right? And then, yes, my life took me down a different path. And then I got to a point that I'm like, I want to, at least try to live out this dream. And what I realized and I knew going into it was going to be a lot of work, right? It was going to be long hours. When I first started, I started working at a network down in Stamford, Connecticut, a business network. I didn't know anything. Like I remember, and I walked in for an interview. I shadowed. The ops manager offered me the job after I was done. It was the same money. When you sell cars, you make a weekly salary, and then you make your commission. So it matched my weekly salary. So I'm like, all right, I don't have to work. In terms of selling cars, if it snowed, we had to be out there cleaning those cars. Right during the summer, like we were running the cars to the car wash. If there, it was such a cutthroat business that at some point it was just like, all right, this isn't for me. Yes, the money could be good, especially when you have great months and weeks, but like it just was, that day-to-day grind was just too much. But I walked into a company that I didn't realize that the owner had been charged by the SEC for security frauds. So right, I didn't realize that, but I didn't realize that occasionally when we were supposed to get paid on every other Thursday, sometimes we didn't get paid till like the following Monday. And then you had to be the first one. You had to rush out to get your check cashed because you didn't know if money was going to be in that account. But that situation, my ops manager, John Iannuzzi, at that point, he took me under his wing, right? So he showed me the technical aspect, right? And we learned it was such a bad place where our commercial logs computer that fired off our spots was so old and used to overheat that there was a window fan attached to the back of it. So like you had to learn how to troubleshoot, right? But he taught me a lot of the technical stuff. He taught me, we would do a lot of tape to live shows. So it was learning how to, record and making sure the segments timed out. I would help him with scheduling, which has come in handy now as I'm part of our scheduling group for radio. So it taught me all these valuable lessons that I was able to take into once I got a job at ESPN New York as a part-time board producer.
How does the Greeny Show separate itself from the Mike and Mike days? I mean, obviously you could go to the well, I'm sure, and draw on that, and there would be a nostalgic factor that would make it work. But there's also the idea that we're not Mike and Mike. We want to be different than that show. So how do you differentiate between the past and the present? So
I think one of the great things that, that Greeny's done is he's incorporated the staff, right? So whether it's myself, Hembo, Bubba, who used to work on Mike and Mike, we've become the hashtag crew. So, right, there's more of that involvement. There are days where we won't have any guests, right? It just will be us. It will be, we incorporate calls, which was something that they rarely, if ever, did on Mike and Mike. So we do caller segments. It's just that more of a relaxed and just having fun, and we get to the topics, but I think that's where you see a bigger difference.
How does Hembo get the stats so quickly? He's got every stat in the history of mankind.
Yeah, I know. It's a cheat code for all those guys with that came from Stats and Info. They're great. And one of the things that like I lean on myself, whether it's when I'm producing the show or helping other guys on the weekends produce shows, is our Slack channels with SIG, and like it allows you to, with Stats and Info, it allows you, there are things there constantly that allows you to take a conversation a different way and think about it and so forth, and versus just reading an article and saying, all right, like we're going to talk about should Aaron Judge be the MVP? Okay, great. But there's also the, hey, look what Vegas is saying. His odds have changed the last 3 days, that type of thing. So it's trying to use as much resources as possible. I do get a little of enjoyment where Greeny will ask Hembo something, and like if I can Google it faster than him and just hop in his talk back and be like, here's the answer. Like there are little victories for me here and there.
I'll get you out of here on this. I would say on probably half the episodes I've asked the producers for like, what advice would you give to this group of people? I'll ask you that. If somebody is listening to this and they want to make a career change, right? They're not going to school for this outright and getting into it at 22. If they want to get into it later, what's your advice to that group of people?
Make sure that you are prepared to work extremely hard. And not only hard, but like your life, your personal life, you don't end up having one early on to get to that point that you want, right? So I was working at a network. And then once I got a part-time job at ESPN New York, I was still working at that network and then going into the city, 5 days a week. So my days were in Stanford till 3, rushed to the city to be there by 5, left at midnight, back up in the, home by 3 o'clock in the morning, back in by 7. It's make sure you're ready to do that. I also think make sure you're willing to say yes for all opportunities, right? Working hard will get you those opportunities, but then what you do with them will make a bigger difference. And if and when you get to that point, you think you've made it. For instance, I produced Greeny. I think I made it. Yes, you need to continue to work hard because your goals will change. And what is required of you will change, right? So it's great just focusing on your show, but now you have the added responsibilities, the managing people, the being involved in decisions and things of that nature. So it's just be prepared. Tell your loved ones you'll see them in 5 to 7 years when you think you've made it. And don't be afraid to take opportunities. Start if wanting to work at a network is your dream or your goal. Go work at a local station. You're not going to get paid a lot, but you'll learn a lot that's going to be valuable for you when you get to that place that you want to be at.
All right, there's Nuno Teixeira of ESPN Radio talking about a lot of good stuff involving the work he does with Greeny on ESPN Radio. I really liked how we talked about the difference between television and radio and how you can go much more in-depth on radio. And it's something that I think we all recognize in the business, but it's still good to hear people say that because it continues to reaffirm what we do and how truly special it really is. Also, love the stories about Jerry Springer. I didn't know there was someone whose sole job it was to pixelate out the colorful things from the crowd. We'll see you next time on the Barrett Sports Media Producers Podcast.
You don't want to believe it, but maybe the show is over.
Thank you for listening to the Producers Podcast. To enjoy past and future episodes, check out iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, the iHeart app, and BarrettSportsMedia.com.